There is a thread that ran really through my whole conversation with C S McIntire, and that is what it means to be seen and not seen. He's an artist that turned away from creating work when he was younger because it would have meant showing who he was before he was ready. Luckily for us, he's showing us now. He is delightfully open and candid in this conversation about his work, his life, coming out, balancing the soft with the rough, and deserving to create. Here's my conversation with C S McIntire. I am so happy to have the chance to speak with you because since I've first seen your paintings on Instagram, and you must get lots of wonderful feedback, but I even got wonderful feedback about your paintings.
Wow. That's wonderful. And let me say, I'm very happy that you invited me to be a part of this. I love it.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, then that's perfect. So then we'll launch right in.
Sure.
And I did send you some questions. So we'll start there, and wherever the conversation goes, we can just follow. When did you first start making art, and what did that mean to you?
Wow. I can remember drawing and creating way back, like early. And I think then, just like now, creating and drawing gave me this huge sense of security. It made me feel good. And who doesn't like that? And it helped me to kind of make sense in a way. It sounds kind of weird thinking if you're 4 or 5 and you're drawing, what are you really making sense of? It just helped me to process things and to get rid of anxiety or fear or whatever feeling. And that's true today.
So you started young. That's not what you do as a career. So how did you continue drawing and painting alongside other things?
Yeah. So actually, when I was in school, in high school, I was yearbook editor. I really loved that. I think that's what gave me a strong sense of composition, some color, and I received an art scholarship, a memorial art scholarship in high school. I was happy, but I really didn't take in how big of a thing that was, I think. And so I went to college, and that scholarship paid for my first year, which was fantastic. I entered as an art major. Unfortunately, we can get into this later, I guess, but I felt it wasn't, the time wasn't right for me. I wasn't ready to be that vulnerable. Then from there, graduated and became a graphic designer for a number of years, kind of buckled under the pressure, my own pressure, and decided to go into nonprofit and really loved that. I really felt like I need to be helping people. That led me to going back to school, which I never would have thought in a million years. And I received my master's degree in speech language pathology and audiology. And so I've been doing that for 19 years. But the art kind of reared its head throughout those career changes. And I would say probably in the 90s, when I was the art department for the governor's office, I started really drawing more, and people said, wow, you know, maybe you can show this stuff or sell it. And that's where it all kind of started.
I realize I have to catch myself. I did that horrible thing where I know the tiniest bit of surface, tiny bits of your life, And I created a whole picture in my mind where he's like, he's a science guy, does speech pathology. He maybe started doing a bit of art when he was younger, but he didn't rediscover. And no, completely wrong. Completely wrong. That's great.
Yeah, I kind of have a little bit of a past. And I will apologize now. Sometimes I use this term a lot. When I'm explaining something, I tend to circle the airport and it takes me a while to land the plane. So bear with, and it's okay for you to say, let's get back.
I'm along for the ride, Craig.
Okay, okay.
That's my way of that's process oriented. Just there's a reason you take a particular path to get someplace.
There's complimentary drinks on this flight too. So there you go.
Yeah, perfect. So, I'm looking at the second question I have here, but actually, I think I want to go to your comment about not feeling ready to be
Okay.
vulnerable or not feeling ready to go into the art full time.
Yeah, that that's really interesting. I went to San Jose State University here in California. This would have been in the early mid 80s. I guess my dream was after I graduated, oh, I just want to move to Santa Cruz and just be a painter. Santa Cruz, beautiful beach town, right? That was kind of this pipe dream. And I got into the program and found that I really just wanted to draw and paint. I didn't want to sit still during, I hate to say this, I didn't want to sit still during art history, anything where I had to sit and listen. I was more like, okay, great. When can I sit down and paint? And I loved it. I really loved it. And as I was taking more classes, honestly, I was only in the art program for maybe 2 years, I think. I started to realize that I wanted to really just create full bore, no boundaries, no walls. But the price tag for that was, oh my God, what happens if somebody questions my sexuality? And again, this was the 80s. This was pre Will and Grace. This was pre everything. And there was a lot of stigma around that. I definitely was not ready to come out. And I knew that the way that I wanted to create was going to open up the floodgates, and I just wasn't ready. And so reluctantly, I removed myself from the program and went a different path, still somewhat creative. It was in advertising with a minor in art. I don't know if you remember this show, 30 something. Does that sound right?
Absolutely.
That is, I wanted that dream, just to be this creative. And somehow it felt a little safer. And I will also say I left because it was the 80s. My family was a little more conservative, very middle class. So I thought, wow, I need a paycheck. I need the security of a paycheck. There was all of these things I needed to have in place, security, before I could do what I really wanted to do.
I find that so compelling that there was something that you were so drawn to do to create art, but that would require you to fully expose yourself through your work. And that was a bigger risk in that moment that than was possible. And to have to give that up, that's a lot to carry, or it feels like a lot to carry. It's a huge choice to have to make to say, no, I can't be myself. And I can't fully be myself doing the thing I'm passionate about. And so I need to divert to something else.
Exactly. And it was something, I'll just piggyback. It was something that felt so right and felt like such a part of me that I was keeping from myself. And I did this up until maybe 10 years ago. Different, clearly. I came out and it's a different time. And boy, did I come out. But
Good. That's good.
there's no
There's
question that.
stories there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for the next podcast.
Okay.
I found myself a similar theme where I was keeping my creating I was keeping that as kind of a reward for myself. Well, I need to, first there's work, and then I have to do X, Y, and Z, and I got to make sure the house is clean, and then I can create. And I found myself not creating and getting really frustrated because once again, it was this belief that I can't do this. I really want to, but I can't because of whatever. It felt like I don't want to say I didn't feel I was worthy, but it felt like it was kind of decadent and that I needed to be, quote unquote, a good boy, eat all my vegetables, and then I could have this creative dessert.
So if you look at the work that you create now, what are some of the themes that you explore, and how might you relate that to what you were holding back or didn't feel you could show before?
Yeah, it's funny because you think, given my explanation of what I was holding back, that my work would be filled with overt sexuality, and it's not. It's just abstract, marks and color blocks and whatnot. But I think my theme, even when I was doing more drawing versus painting, because first I was just strictly pastel artist, did a lot of very ethereal, a lot of blending, very abstract. There's always been this theme of things being subtle or hidden or peeking through. Things being, on one hand, being soft and soothing and comforting. Then there is this other image that is, or marks or scratches or scribbles that kind of balance out this softness, this comfort with something that's more energetic. I have a friend who said, your work always looks just a little bit, I don't know, angry, or there's always this little bit of tension. And I'm like, oh, that is high praise. I love that. So I think my theme is layers and continuing to look for things and always to be discovering something. And also kind of holding this kind of softness with this kind of grittiness, and how those two things can come together.
You're reminding me that we had a little bit of conversation back and forth on Instagram about a painting you did recently, and you titled it Seen, Unseen, or Unseen and Seen.
Yeah.
And now it's starting to, in the bigger context,
right.
make more sense. Could you take a moment and just that particular piece, what inspired you? Because abstract art is still a challenge, probably will always be a challenge. I do struggle creating more abstract art and also questioning myself a lot about, what do I take from this? How do I feel about this? What does this mean to me, without reading the description an artist might have written about that piece?
This is great because actually I had a discussion with another artist who I just met for the first time online. She said, well, how do you feel about titling your work? Because then you're telling people what they need to be seeing. And, maybe we shouldn't title our work, to just keep it open-ended. The question was around creating seen and unseen and what that meant. When I was thinking about the title, I was thinking about how I want to be, or not just me, but I think people, we all want to be seen. But also wrapped up in that, there's also a degree of not wanting to be seen or to be unseen. Because once you are seen, then you have to deal with the emotions that come along with being seen. And it's not always comfortable, right? But it's good to just be receptive and to listen to what others are saying, because they have a unique perspective of who you are, and it's good to listen to that.
I was thinking also that there's something kind of unique about, well, maybe it's not unique, but I'm just going to throw it out there, that people like you and like me of a certain age who felt that they needed to hide their sexuality when they were young, And I think that's a very particular take on what it means to be seen and not seen, and what you're willing to risk being seen. That isn't true today in the same way anymore at all. And it's
Yeah.
great that it isn't. But I think, like, of a certain generation, we share that. And of course, the best part is, looking back now, I'm thinking, but did people really not see? Like, I think they did, right? But I just felt safe in my little cocoon that they didn't see me.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, it's really true. And thankfully for me, in my experience, I was received with open arms. I remember when I came out to my fraternity brothers, this was a couple years after graduation, and I was at a party, and I took them into a room one by one to tell them individually who I was. And I think the majority of them gave me high fives, and I was so nervous. And then one of my fraternity brothers, who I love dearly, he just surprised me at a show at the reception for my current show. And after I told him, he said, "I don't get it. Like, why don't you get?" He's like, "Well, you weren't attracted to me?" Like, so it was really sweet and endearing and lightened the moment. I mentioned a price tag. There's always a price tag for things, right? Things that we do, things that we hold to ourselves. And I think with my art now, that price tag it's like the best bargain you can ever get. It just feels like, wow, this is just wonderful, and it's so worth it. So my work is really intuitive. I never know what I'm going to paint. I never know what colors I'm going to select. I always have some colors at the ready, leftovers, if you will, but those always tend to change. So when I go down to paint, it's all just based on, emotion. There's just this feeling, this urge that I need to go, not necessarily get rid of what I'm feeling, but I need to take this energy and put it on paper. And maybe it was actually reaching out to you in our discussion, and maybe anxiety around, oh my gosh, I'm going to talk about vulnerability. Do I want to be that vulnerable? So that may have snuck in there a little bit. I think the piece was, initially I thought this can be very edgy and gritty and dark. And then all of a sudden it just turned. And I don't know if it was the palette. Again, I never know what the palette's going to be, but it just kind of evolves. And this piece is very pink and peach and yellow and tan, and it's kind of a neutral. And then you can see the scribbles and those dark marks that are coming through. When I titled it, I think it just felt right, that it's like, wow, yeah, I want to be vulnerable, and I want you to see me, but there's a price tag for that. That means I'm going to be seen, and there are some things that I maybe don't want to be seen. So it's this whole kind of balance of, we want something, but at the same time, we also maybe don't really want it.
I think that tension is something that we balance all the time. And in different contexts, it can look different. There are certain things that are okay to have seen by certain people in certain contexts and not in other contexts.
Well, I was just going to say.
I saw your face and I was like, oh.
I was going to say, and how this works in relationships. So disclosure, hopefully he's okay with this, but my husband is a psychologist. So there's always this discussion about wanting one thing, but also not wanting one thing. I just think about in relationships, it doesn't only have to be romantic, it can be with friends. You want to be open and you want them to really see you. But then if somebody says, wow, it really bothers me. Wow, that was really sarcastic. Or, wow, when you do this is how it makes me feel. Well, of course, you don't want that part to be seen. And when it is seen, you're like, oh gosh, then the defense comes up, right? And I'm not that way. You go in and you want to protect yourself. And so I think that's also in that piece.
It's interesting you say that, and I'm only taking baby steps, very baby steps. But there's a whole other sort of range of interest around, for me, around feedback and what it means to ask for feedback or to receive feedback you might not have asked for, and how it can give you sight into yourself in a way that you can't see. So there's the seen and unseen within me, just things I cannot see, but that other people can see. And I can only access that through their feedback.
Yes.
And I need to figure out what to do with that feedback sometimes. But the very first step that I'm still at, just like baby step one, is just don't react to it. Just hear it. Just that. Don't try to do anything with it. Don't fight with it. Just hear it.
Amen. Yes. Yeah. It's so true. And that's something that I'm trying to work on myself, that we're trying to work on, right? I think, universally, I would hope that everyone is trying to work on, to not be so reactive, to just sit with it and to hear it and to know that, it goes back to being vulnerable, right? I only thought of the one definition of being vulnerable or vulnerability, and it's not a good one. It's negative, right? It's not being safe, and it's being open up to injury or assault or whatever. And it wasn't until the last, I don't know, few years with my own therapist that I started to realize, oh yeah, intellectually I got it and I knew it, but it's hard to think about being vulnerable is actually, it's a hard thing, and it's really a good thing, because that just makes you so much more present, and that allows you to be empathetic and sympathetic. That's the other piece of my practice and my work, is through creating, I really want to connect with people. And I think that's why abstract really works for me, because I want you to just feel something. I don't want you to think, oh, that's a beautiful painting of a vase of flowers. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I love that. But for me, I really want to connect with an emotion, even if it's negative, because I've had plenty of negative, plenty of trolls. And I'm learning how to, like you said, just receive that. And I don't have to react, because oftentimes it has nothing to do with my art. And sometimes I will sit with it and think about, maybe I need to think about what they're saying.
If we carry that back down your life story, and it's not necessarily that there's this moment in time where you said, yes, I'm willing to bare my soul through my art, but whatever that process looked like for you, what would you say brought you from not ready to being ready, or at least opening up to sharing yourself through your work in your way?
Well, I would definitely say accepting who I was and not hiding who I was. I mean, I was one of these that always knew that I was gay from a very young age, but didn't know what it meant. And I went through a period of, like, this term, internalized homophobia, right? So I think once I finally came out, that kind of shattered the ceiling and threw open the curtains, where it's like, okay, well, now I really don't have anything to hide. So now I really can just be myself. So I think that's really where the art took a turn. And I remember having a piece early on, this was in the late 80s, shortly after I came out. I had a piece that was juried into this community center. And it was just such a wonderful feeling that this piece was selected to go in. And of course, once you get that validation and approval that you were looking for, then how do you sit with that? Because that's a whole other ball of wax, right? Now, do they really like it? Does it really, have merit, or what does this really mean? And I still carry that around, when I'm in a show or somebody, shares my work. I will just say, out of the 2 open calls I just submitted to, neither one of them accepted my work. Yeah, so I think about that. What does this say about my work? But I always come back to, well, you know what? I was vulnerable, and I sent these pieces off to be juried, and kudos for me for being vulnerable and doing that. And that's the balancing act. Feel blank and do it anyway. Feel vulnerable, do it anyway. Feel anxious about it, do it anyway. And so I really do think about that. And even talking with you today, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm going to be babbling, or something's going to go awry. But I just felt, but I need to do this anyway, right? Because I can sit back and be anxious about it and create all of these how it can go wrong and then not do it, or I can feel all this stuff and just do it anyway. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
I do appreciate it. And this is not quite the same thing, but in the last week, I've been telling myself because I've done some things over the past couple of years that even take me by surprise. I think is that really you? Which you is that's chosen to do this thing? And I asked myself, well, why? Why, Sarah, did you decide to do that? Or why are you even considering maybe doing this thing? And now I've swapped it to why not? So, which is pretty much you just said, well, why not? That's a much shorter exercise.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I think things come along with age, right? And life experience and therapy and loss and triumph. And I wish I could be in the space emotionally that I am now when I was 32. Why did I have to wait till 58, almost 58? But it kind of is what it is.
It feels to me like you're in the place you want to be.
Oh, yes. In a very good place. I'm learning that you just take everything that's thrown at you, good, bad, because sometimes those bad things are really useful. You can learn something from them. I was walking this morning to kind of clear my head, and I was thinking about this very topic, that my work comes from almost 58 years of a lot of stuff. And I was thinking that if you can imagine sitting at a table and somebody puts down desserts or something, and there's 20 desserts in front of you, right? And you just want to wrap your arms around all of them, to gather all of them and bring them close and carry them away so that you can enjoy them. That's kind of where I am now and what goes into my work. All of those things throughout my life, happy things, traumatic things, capital T traumatic and little t traumatic things, joy, loss, anger, frustration, all of that stuff has to come together. And that's what drives my work and is driving how I look at my world today.
Take care.
Okay.
Thank you again for your time, Craig. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.